My wife always likes to talk about how cute she thinks Harrison Ford is in the original Star Wars. That's just normal.
I agree.
There we go. See? To be able to just notice that, I find that person attractive. We need to find a way for that to just mindfully notice that.
Yeah.
That's there. It doesn't have to tell me what to do, and I don't have to be scared.
Welcome to TMI Wellness Talk, your favorite slightly inappropriate wellness discussion platform, where we take a shameless approach on talking about what really happens behind closed doors. You'll learn what's normal, what's not, and get the expert's touch of knowledge on all of our dirty little secrets.
Welcome to TMI Wellness Talk. We are your hosts, James Timmons and Lisa Reed. And this is pre-recorded, but you may notice that I'm wearing green and nobody else is.
Slightly.
Yeah, okay. So today's topic is something that I personally have done a lot of exploration on, but I wouldn't call myself an expert by any means. But before we get into that, how are you doing, Lisa? You had a really rough morning, you said.
Yeah. I was filming a commercial yesterday, and I went and I had all my makeup and all my hair stuff and everything in a bag.
Mm-hmm.
And then this morning I got out of the shower and I didn't have my bag. And I looked in the mirror and I was like, this can't happen. So
You were in such a rush that you forgot green.
And I was like, yeah, screw green.
Yeah.
Like, I got to fix my face.
So I'm immune to the pinches. But speaking of things of being green, most people are green on the topic of discussion today. See what I did there?
Oh, yeah. He thought about that last night.
Yeah, I did. I actually thought about that as I was peeing. But we're joined by a very awesome guest, Dan Garner, who is an LMHC, currently working on his PhD in clinical sexology and an unofficial or official expert in sex addiction, right?
Officials.
Okay, sweet. So I'm really excited to have this conversation. This is a very taboo and unfortunately unknown topic. Would you say that's a fair statement?
Yeah, people don't like to talk about it. People don't want, especially if you feel like you're struggling with it, you don't really want to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of shame involved usually, at least in my own personal experience. But before we jump into that, we're dying to know your personal story on from when you were born into how we got here today. So as early as you can remember, please share your story with us.
Like in terms of my struggle with...
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So I was born and raised in Mattawa.
Okay.
Probably heard of Mattawa.
Mm-hmm.
Dinky little farm town up north of here. And true blue through and through, Mormon family.
Okay.
And so very religious, very Christian religious background. I was just kind of born at a time we were going through a bankruptcy. My mom was going through a lot of stuff because of that. My dad was going through a lot of stuff because of that. And so I just kind of hit this moment where I ended up as a little baby and as a kid feeling kind of lost, which we're going to talk about how in sex addiction that figures into it. And just kind of going through life and that sexual shame, which we can dive into a little bit more also later, but that when we feel just like, the fact that I feel sexual feelings and I'm interested in sex and I like to touch myself sometimes is bad, then you start to feel like you're bad. I'm bad. There's something wrong with me. There's something gross
Hiding
about me.
Yeah.
Right. And so I have to keep it hidden. And then I got my first, pornography exposure in middle school.
Was it a magazine?
Mind. It was a magazine. The first one was a magazine.
That was our era.
Yes, in a gym locker. Blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Just lit me up. And at the same time, oh my gosh, I'm the most disgusting pervert that there could ever be.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting how that plays on itself.
Yeah,
and
shame.
so then, that shame is just I'm a disgusting pig anyway, so I might as well just go enjoy that jolt of electricity that I felt. And so then you kind of get going on that, and that was kind of my life for a while as a Mormon, a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You serve a mission, so I got good enough, clean enough, whatever, to go on a mission. And that's actually where I ended up hitting rock bottom
Okay.
I acted out in a way that charges could have been pressed and et cetera, et cetera. They weren't actually, but that was my rock bottom moment. Came home, started doing therapy, got into deeper recovery work, and that's kind of why I'm now a therapist.
Yeah.
And trying to help other people, because I don't think I ever was a disgusting pervert.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I had a struggle, and I think I had just all this angst and stuff going on inside. So.
Yeah, and I know that like the sexual addiction is not necessarily something that somebody could be diagnosed with, right? But there are like addictive behaviors that people can exhibit, right? That are sexual, but usually would you say it's tied to like some kind of trauma or something? Just in your observations.
So a couple things in there.
Yeah.
It's not a diagnosis. That's true.
Yep.
Like there's the diagnostic and statistical manual that we have, and I can't diagnose somebody for insurance or something like that with sexual addiction. Internationally, you can. So there is a international distinction there.
Yeah.
But so that's one of the big issues with sexual addiction is the fact that a lot of people feel like, well, if you do this thing, if you engage in this sexual behavior, oh, you must be an addict. It's like, well, no, not necessarily. You have to have like that compulsive, like.
And the whole reason you were born is because your parents liked having sex with each other, right?
Yes.
So for you to feel like you were nasty for wanting.
It's a human need.
Yeah. It doesn't make you nasty. You just when you're not allowed to talk about it and it's something that's sinful, then it's something that you hide and something you have to you deal with on your own, and that's sad and hard. And so you do it your own way and in secret, and maybe make mistakes that you wouldn't normally make if you knew that it wasn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
Which is one of the like James, you're bringing up about trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. I think that most of the time there is some kind of trauma back there that's pushing it. But something that we don't have to think about is that sometimes the sexual exposure itself, like pornography itself, can be that trauma.
Yeah.
Like for me, I consider that to have been my trauma.
That's true. I can remember the first time I saw porn, I was in the 2nd grade. And so and that is very clear in my mind, like a traumatic event. Because it was something completely foreign and traumatic. It was like an assault on my brain, But I
can remember my first time too. Yeah, it's something you don't forget because you're like, what in the heck are they doing?
I mean, it's so weird when you're, when it's too early, But and I'll briefly share just so we can kind of have context for my own experience. I grew up without my mom for the most part, and so I had that neglected need, of nurturing and validation. So then I got into a porn addiction, but then or porn struggle, I would say, most of my adolescence and my adult life, and then became a Christian, and then it was, because before I was a Christian, it was not a big deal, but then when I became a Christian, it was shameful. So then I was like, okay, I got to manage this. I got to get this under control. And then I married my wife, and that unmet need that I had still was mostly unmet, that validation and stuff, and not to her fault or anything, but it eventually led to adultery for me. I had an emotional affair, and then repented from that. 2 years later, I had another affair that became very physical, and then got caught about just over a year ago. And then that led me to wanting to find some sort of solution and explore this. Why, I knew that what I was doing was wrong and it was destructive, but I didn't have the power to overcome these temptations.
And it's not that you didn't love your wife and your family.
Yeah.
It wasn't that. It was something else.
It was, and it was a complete betrayal of my wife and my family, but it was this thing that I just kind of wasn't looking for, but I found, and it was addictive to me. It was this human need that I had that was not met, and I just couldn't, I didn't want to stay away from it. Yeah. So then I kept it a secret. And then when it's a secret, that's where it completely breeds. But then when it was no longer a secret, well, it's now everyone has a front row view of this thing I'd struggled with for years. And but people are like, well, you should just want to stop, And so a lot of people want to do like behavior modification for me. And it led me to a rehab facility in Florida because I was like, I need intensive therapy. I just want to get away. And that was a bad choice because I went to, it was drug and alcohol down there, you know. But I learned a lot about addiction. But I did eventually, like a few weeks later, go to this place in Edmonds, a mental health facility, and really kind of explored like my own shame and just the, you know, childhood neglect and all that stuff. So that's my story in a nutshell. But yeah, so
as the therapist in the room, I want to honor
yeah,
that vulnerability.
Thank you
for sharing that. And
For real, it's brave.
yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Mhm.
And yeah, I think it is really important. Sex addiction is a real thing.
mm-hmm.
You know, I will go to mattresses on that. It's a real thing, but it's a different kind of animal. Like, so
yeah,
there are a lot of therapists and treatment programs and things that still want to just kind of box it up as, well, it's an addiction. So we know how to treat addiction, you know, drug and alcohol, you know,
sobriety, yeah,
boom, we just plug it in there.
And you just stop.
Yeah. And yeah, we just change your behavior. You
exactly.
just, what's your trigger? And, you know, and I've just found it really isn't sufficient because your sexuality is something that is just so core to you,
Yeah,
you know?
Well, it's called making love. Like
Mhm.
that's how you show someone you love them.
Mhm.
And so if it's bad, then of course you're going to think it's bad if it's with the wrong person. But at
Yeah.
the same time, it's like, if you're still making love, like how can it be so bad if it's love?
yeah. And then this thing, when you get caught in an affair, it suddenly is like you are not allowed to visit this. You can't talk about it. What you did was wrong. And
Mhm.
culturally, it's largely like, yeah, that's unacceptable. So whatever you got to do to get over it, get over it. You can't talk about it. And so then, but you're like, but why? I need to know why I did this. And then without doing that, and then like, yeah. So when I was in Florida, one good thing is that one of the guys one night I told him my story and he handed me a book written by the author it was the sex and love addiction book of anonymous.
Right. From
Sorry.
from the 12 step group.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was very insightful.
So sex and love addiction.
Yeah. And so I
So
kind
they're
of
two of the same.
identified more with love addiction because, like, again, my mom she left when I was 4 and then just I did not have that. So I had that like that human need. And so when I found it, I became very compulsive with it, you know, like I needed another hit, you know. And so, yeah, so I figured out that there are healthy ways to get that, you know, but yeah.
And healthy ways to grieve the wound,
Yeah.
grieve the fact
Mhm.
that I didn't get that,
Yeah.
and that it's okay for me to hurt around that, not just
Yeah.
be okay, just be fine.
Yeah.
You know?
Like it's
So-
fine. You were a little kid. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
So people are like, why does it matter? You're just a little kid, but it does matter.
Yeah.
Which is the hardest thing, one of the hardest things in my line of work is to help people to see the wounds that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And I often describe it as like, we all have these childhood wounds that we grew up with. Some of them are in this bucket over here. Nobody can see me, but there's a bucket over here of things that I didn't want, but I got anyway.
Oh yeah.
I got teased, I got bullied, I got yelled at, I got, abused. And then there's this bucket over here of things that I really, really wanted, really, really needed, and I didn't get.
Yeah.
And that's also a wound, but we have a tendency, like Lisa, like you're kind of bringing up there, to just sort of say, well, it would have been nice to get those warm fuzzies, but if I didn't get them, then I'll be fine.
It's the reason I am who I am today. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Like I grew out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then you still use those in different ways of your life, whatever it may be, like for sexual ways, addictions, whatever the addiction may be. But if that's your choice of addiction and that's what fills that wound and fills that spot, then of course you're going to like it because it feels better.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't hurt for that split second.
Yeah.
And we're all looking to not hurt, right?
Mhm.
Especially with sex addiction. That's why I'll do anything to kind of get those warm fuzzies.
Mhm.
And sex addiction, sex is something we do for love,
Mhm.
for connection, for relationship.
Yeah.
And so it's a very nice fit. Oh, okay, I can get a little lust hit, a little sex hit
Yeah.
and feel like I'm getting related to and being seen and heard and understood in a vulnerable way.
Yeah.
And it's not actually true that that's
Mhm.
what's going on,
Yeah.
but I feel like it is, and I'll take it. If I can't get my warm fuzzies in real life, then
Yeah.
I'll take the fake ones.
Yeah.
And that's what we get
Because it
hooked
doesn't
on.
feel fake.
Right. No, it doesn't.
But it is there's an issue with it, and I can understand that, like wanting to feel loved, wanting people around you to love you, like that it's something that everybody wants. But what's the real difference between somebody that likes having sex and
Mhm.
somebody that is a sex addict?
Yeah.
Good
Very
question.
important question. And so to take kind of two steps back from that first, I do think that sex addiction is important to sort of see
Okay.
it on a spectrum. And that's what I always go through with my clients. One of the first things, and I have a particular assessment that I use, but I see addiction as, an addiction is really nothing more than a moderate to severe habit, ultimately.
Okay.
Mhm.
And a habit is nothing really more than a mild to moderate addiction. In your brain, and we can dig into that if we want to, but in your brain, it's the same. It's the same kind of mechanism. The difference is how severe the consequences are.
Right.
Yeah.
And if that cost-benefit analysis of my sexual behaviors is getting heavier and heavier on the costs and the benefits are going away, but I'm still doing it, that's more on that addiction
Yeah.
Hurting other
side of
people,
things. Right.
hurting yourself, making your life harder. Yeah, if it's
Absolutely.
causing you turmoil and pain in your life that you
Mhm.
don't want,
But
then
you
there's
can't
a
get over it.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I draw that line, is like somebody who's just really enjoying a lot of sex. Well, you can weigh out that cost-benefit analysis for yourself.
Yeah.
And but what gets hard about that is that a lot of times if I'm an addict, I'm not very good at assessing that.
Yeah.
I
Right.
lose my ability to assess that cost-benefit analysis
True.
very well. So another kind of, because I get this question from clients all the time. They come in and like, I'm not really a sex addict. I just want to have sex with my wife a lot. And so I always say, someone with a high libido who just really enjoys sex is going to be able to hear no without resentment.
Right.
Mm.
And that's kind of like, if I can't hear no from my spouse, which I should be using spouse, not wife or husband or partner,
Mhm.
without getting really resentful and pouty and things like that, then I'm looking more at like an addiction, because I need this. I need this affirmation. This is a warm fuzzy for me that I feel like I can't survive without. And you are depriving me of that. And how could you? And you're being such
Yeah.
a jerk about that.
Or
When
being able to assess a situation to be like, this isn't a good time, or
Mhm.
like they need to go to work or whatever, or they just don't feel like it.
Yeah, addiction. Because when it was exposed that I was having an affair, and I
Mhm.
couldn't get myself to really stop. I could clearly see that my life was falling apart. That everything was being destroyed, but I still, like, despite the consequences, I was like, just one more time. It's horrible that I'm actually
This will
sitting
be
here
the
saying-
last time.
Yeah, exactly. But then, of course, that I wonder how many addicts have just perpetuated their addiction with just that one more time.
Mhm.
Well, that's every time.
Yeah.
Most of the time. But I think it would be like mourning the loss of the person you had an affair with. That feeling, like mourning that, is hard. Like you have to feel it and you have to let it go. But you like it. Like it's like
Yeah.
quitting cigarettes. Like but I like smoking cigarettes. I want to smoke a cigarette. Like
Yeah.
you have to be able to let that go somehow. And I don't know how you could do that.
Well, thankfully for me, it like played out, and it became like there was a lot of deception involved, and I could think clearly. But regardless, so yeah, tell us more about the spectrum that you were describing.
Well, because one of the things that I always try to focus on, because everybody wants to come in and they're either saying, I'm a sex addict. Look at me. What did all this? I'm a sex addict. And they've
Yeah.
sort of self-diagnosed themselves already. Or they're coming in and saying, there's no way possible. And so it's just as important for me to rule out a sex addiction as a part of treatment as
Yeah.
to rule it in.
Yeah.
And so, again, with this assessment that I have, it kind of gives us some numbers to start with, but I kind of have a habit side of it that, you're not in a full-blown addiction,
Yeah.
but you're probably moving that direction, and
Yeah.
you're just kind of in that habit phase of it,
Like
where
you need it and think about it more than you should.
yeah, when it's on the habit side of things, I usually see that more as, okay, so what we need to work on is you're not managing your emotions very well.
Yeah.
You don't know how to deal with anger
Right.
or sadness or fear in your life very well, and you're just kind of using this as an easy button. That's why when I saw this, I was hoping it was going to be an easy button, but as a prop. But that's what I always use. Like so porn or masturbation or whatever, prostitutes, whatever your behaviors, that's the easy button.
Yeah.
I feel sad, easy button. And
Yeah.
I'm going to just feel better.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not used to doing the hard work of actually mindfully, which is my main therapeutic approach, is mindfulness, of
Yeah.
mindfully getting in touch with, I'm feeling really lonely right now.
Yeah.
That's what's really going on. I'm just so lonely. You know, me and my spouse have had maybe a little tiff and I feel rejected. And so how am I actually going to meet that need? How am I
Yeah.
actually going to take care of myself in that way? And if I'm more on the habit side of things, just doing that kind of therapeutic work is what you need.
Yeah.
We'll just start doing that work. And we don't really have to do behavior modification, type stuff, at least not primarily.
Yeah.
We just help you figure out your emotions better, and it just kind of takes care of itself.
Yeah.
When you're on the true addict side of things, we just got to you need to go inpatient somewhere, and you need to just get some sobriety under your belt so you get out of that loop.
Yeah. Like stop
of
the bleeding.
constantly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we can work on your emotional stuff.
For
So that's
sure.
kind of depending on where you end up on that spectrum, we
So if you're
shift
active
treatment.
with it, if you're like
Yeah.
super active with it and taking it too far to different levels that you just can't handle, like you're not supposed to do this, but you just can't help it,
Mm-hmm.
where it can even go to hurting people or doing
Yeah.
things that you shouldn't do, and you're not a bad person. You just have this like yearning to just jump in and do it instead of the feeling your emotions and understanding why you feel this way.
Right.
So it's breaking that scary habit or feeling the emotions and the reasons that you're actually wanting to use sex as something to make you feel better.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is hopefully, if anybody's listening, that this is helpful to, that's part of the stigma that I really want to be able to break down. And even one of the things that bothers me the most is when people kind of joke around, well, if I was going to have a addiction, I'd want it to be sex addiction.
Yeah, I've
Like,
heard that.
Woohoo! And it's like,
Is it?
no.
It's like, trust me, dude. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's incredibly painful
Yeah.
because it is like I'm swirling in all of this emotional gunk that I don't know what to do with.
Yeah.
The only solution that my brain is telling me is to go do this thing that then makes me feel even worse about myself.
Yeah.
And it's a death spiral.
Well, and
it's incredibly painful.
so, I mean, the good news, if there is that it's really a behavior, but that's what gets them into your office. And then, because I mean, I'm sure you find that you hardly ever talk about the actual sex itself, right?
Right.
You're actually digging deeper to find the root cause. Because like I've shared this a couple times where if you look at a person, every person on earth, there's two truths. They're precious and they have pain. So then if somebody exhibits, that's Mr. Rogers who said that, by the way. But if somebody's exhibiting destructive or addictive behaviors, then there's always a pain attached to it. Like that's uncharacteristic. That's, like we got to, but oftentimes we just want, like I said, the bleeding to stop and to just like stop and then like just go back to normal. We don't have to deal with this. Just stop your behavior and that's it. And then they think by like reverse engineering the behavior, it's going to somehow solve the problem. But it's like, well, the desire's still there. Like somebody said one time, like, sex trafficking, for example, horrible thing in the world. But they said if you rescued every single person being sex trafficked today, the demand would still be there tomorrow. And then they would just find new people. So it's like modifying behavior is not going to solve the problem. And that's the thing, with this, that it's always behavior modification, or not always, but almost always behavior modification. And then it's just too shameful to talk about. So this is important.
Well, and then you have to think like, I think a lot of the reasons that people do change with this kind of addiction is because they're hurting others. hurt people, right?
Yeah.
So you're not doing it on purpose, but so for them, like I know a lot of, I asked people on social media if what they thought about sex addiction, and there were so many comments of people like, oh, it's just what people say when they cheat.
Yeah, an excuse.
It's just an excuse. Like, that's just what cheaters do. And then they just blame it on this so that, you know, they're like, well, I'm going to therapy now. We can be back together. Like, you know, everything's better. And I think people probably do that at times when they really just want to have the best of both worlds. But at the same time, there is an actual issue with this that people suffer from. And when I say suffer, like your heart breaks. You don't, nobody wants to hurt other people. Nobody wants to hurt themselves. Nobody wants to hurt their family, their kids. Nobody wants to be the dad that, you know, cheated on their mom. Like, that's why we're not together anymore, because you couldn't control this issue that you had. Like, and it's hard to think of and deal with, but it's true. And how do you begin to, so you just begin by looking deep into their heart and seeing why it is they do it?
Like, specifically if we're talking about infidelity, which something we might want to talk about is there's also kind of a spectrum between sex addiction and then there's like love addiction, there's relationship addiction. And then I kind of draw a distinction with pornography addiction as well. We might want to put a pin in that. But when it comes to infidelity specifically, I always walk through with them and with their spouse that there's basically 3 reasons why people are unfaithful. Sex addiction. So I need the drug. I don't know how to do life without it. And so I'm just looking for a bigger and bigger hit. And it escalated perhaps to infidelity. Narcissism, which is just like, I just kind of want what I want. And I don't know why you're so bothered that I'm going and getting it. You know, I am just a narcissist. And then existential. You know, there are times when people are just like, this just isn't the marriage for me. I don't want to be married to this person. And so I'm going to go shop around. Still not a healthy, you know, appropriate way to do that. But they literally are just, and usually they're like setting up their landing pad.
Yeah.
I'm going to go find someone. Once I find someone, then I'm just going to divorce you and be done.
Right. Yeah. They're staying with you so that it's not a hard process. And so as soon as they're done, you're beginning to cry about losing your marriage, but they've already been done.
It's like a 2-week notice. Yeah.
Yeah. And
which is incredibly painful.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the worst.
Yeah. Being blindsided never, ever feels good. And which isn't something you should do, which is wrong in many ways. But so I guess, yeah, knowing the difference between those, like, I mean, if you've gone through this and you're wanting to get back with your husband, knowing if it was because he was a narcissist or knowing if it was because it was existential, I can't say it. Existential, or a sex addiction. Knowing the difference between those could help you make your decision about what you do moving forward. Because if it's just something that they're going to continue to do because they think they deserve it and they can do whatever they want, probably not a great relationship to be in for your own heart and family.
Right.
So I guess, yeah, knowing the difference.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm just trying to point out that there are people who don't care if they hurt the people that they love.
Yeah.
You know, there are people that engage in these behaviors because of that.
Yeah.
But that's not everybody. It's nuanced. And if you get into the blogosphere, they're constantly trying to sort of boil this all down to, well, all addicts are narcissists. And it's just not that simple.
That's not true. Yeah.
At all.
I mean, like for me, and that's the only thing I can speak to, but that I did care about the pain I was going to cause, but I still like wanted that thing, that object of my affection, as evil as that sounds. But I did care. So then the reason, and that's why I kept it a secret. But obviously I didn't, I mean, you can argue that I didn't care enough to end it, but that I definitely tried, you know, but yeah,
Well, can I poke at that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just because there's sort of a flip side to that coin.
Yeah.
Because it's always like, I believe you. I didn't want to hurt the people that I care and that I love about, but I am pursuing this. My brain, in a lot of ways, is pushing me toward this and saying this is what I need. And so, yeah, I hide it in order to not hurt the people that I love. But the flip side to that coin also is, well, as long as I hide it, then I'm not going to hurt the people that I love.
Yeah.
So
Like,
therefore,
you're only sorry you got caught.
yeah. So then I'm not going to feel that pain.
Yeah.
I'm not going to feel the consequence and the pain of this behavior because I'm going to be able to hide it. And those are the stories we tell ourselves. And as you experience, the truth will out.
Totally. And for the record, I now realize that's a massive lie that I was believing, because like I've seen, I got caught, and then that was like a year ago. My life completely fell apart. So I'm on this side of it, going, "Gosh, I wish I just hadn't done it to begin with."
Well, yeah, but that's what you were using to survive the pain you were going through.
Yeah, I mean, but looking back, there are definitely healthier ways I could have.
Well, yeah, of course.
Dealt with that.
Yeah, we're still responsible for not getting the help that we needed earlier.
Yeah.
That's why we have to hold on to that accountability and ownership.
Yeah, that's why this talk is important, because someone might be listening who is down that road, not too far down the road, but then they're like, "Oh, maybe I should go get therapy or talk to somebody." But and that's the thing, like when I did confess it to like my friends, a few of them they were hurt by me, and so they wanted to punish me, and then it just made it a lot harder for me. And then because that addiction, or I don't want to call it an addiction, but that struggle was like my escape from reality, So then when reality got really hard with people like wanting to punish me, behavior modification, then I just wanted to go back to it. And so, but yeah, I see written down here, serial affairs. Like, what do you see that often? I guess the percentage of your clients, what would you say is like maybe?
Most of my clients are what I would term pornography addicts.
Yeah.
Which we haven't. Should I kind of line out what I mean by that?
Yes.
So one of the reasons, well, there's several reasons why I think it's important to make that distinction. First of all, because a lot of the reading that you do out there wants to lump that all together and necessarily see, well, if somebody is struggling with looking at pornography, well, it's only a matter of time before they're acting out with real people, and what I have found is that is actually not true.
I agree. Yep. Because
a lot of what is going on emotionally for someone who's into porn is very different. And so someone who's acting out with real people, they're hunting down those warm fuzzies. They want that
they want
that
the
love,
touch.
the touch, clinically we call it limerence, that beginning of a relationship where we're just kind of besotted with each other. And that's what they're looking for, and they want that contact, that reality. For someone who's a true porn addict, that's the last thing in the world they actually want.
Yeah.
They like the isolation.
Yeah.
That's what they're after. They like this little cocoon, safe little bubble cocoon that they can put themselves in, and where there is no vulnerability, there is no risk.
Still a part of it.
Yeah.
Without having to be a part of it.
Right. I don't have to deal with all of your stuff as a real human.
Yeah.
All of your emotions and making you like me and blah, blah. I don't want to deal with that. I just want this. And so, in my humble opinion, I think that's something that is important to realize. The pornography addiction is not necessarily just a stepping stone to something quote unquote worse.
Chasing the orgasm. Whereas the other way, you're chasing love. You're chasing affection.
A human need.
You don't care if you ever saw that person in real life. You just want to get the orgasm. You want to feel that sense of relief in that way. You're not searching for comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's great that you're an observer of like all different forms on the spectrum, because I was approached by people who 10 years ago or whatever had hired a prostitute or something, or like another person who struggled with porn, and they gave their advice for me. They were not experts in this by any means, but their advice to me was the same, like of how you would try to mitigate your porn addiction, of just just have an accountability partner, which is important. But
put a filter on your computer.
Exactly. And then there you go. Yeah. It's just like trying to avoid donuts, Right. But it's like, well, this is, a neglected human need. But again, not making excuses, but there is a huge, huge distinction.
Right. And I don't want to ever give the impression that I'm saying one is worse than the other. They're just different.
For sure.
But you need the treatment, the recovery plan that you're going to need in place is going to be different. If I'm someone who is seeking isolation and a cocoon, my treatment is going to look very different from somebody who's looking for plugging into anybody I can find.
For sure.
It's just different.
Well, and everybody's always like, well, everybody watches porn. It's normal. Every guy watches porn. Everybody always says that. So, I mean, to me personally, like in my relationships, I really never cared if guys watched porn, like ever. But I also have friends that are like, oh my gosh, like he was looking at porn on his phone. And I was like, oh,
yeah.
What are you gonna do? Like, for me, for some reason, it didn't bother me. I don't know why.
Well, that's that cost benefit analysis, and if we can all kind of approach the cost benefit analysis on our own. And that's why I try to stay, even though, I have certain personal views about it, that does not enter the therapy room because there are couples where they just kind of integrate pornography and that works for them. So that's why it's not about the behavior.
Yeah.
It's not the thing that you're doing.
That's a great point.
It's the costs that are coming from it. And if I'm continuing to engage it, even though they're really big costs.
If you're hiding it, there's an issue.
Well, and that was one thing I wanted to say a little bit ago and really point out is that a lot of times what we're truly addicted to is hiding. I'm addicted to secrets. I'm addicted to secrets as a way to manage my life.
Yeah. It's this one thing you have control over that nobody else does. I mean, it's like me smoking cigarettes, like hiding in a corner, like it's the one thing I have control over. Like I can do myself and that nobody can tell me I can't. And really, really wanting one is always when I'm around people that I can't have one. That's when I want one the most.
Well, and research says that most people who struggle with any sex addiction, we'll use as the umbrella term, pornography addiction, love addiction, come from what tend to be rigid, disengaged families. So basically meaning they're rigid because they have really clear expectations of how you're going to behave, how you're going to feel, how you're going to think, what you're going to believe about certain things, what you're going to believe about sex or masturbation or, that's bad. You shouldn't be touching yourself. So we're very rigid on what's expected, but then we're disengaged in that we're not actually going to like help you work through that. We're not going to be there for you when it's really hard for you.
Because we don't talk about it.
Right, because we're not going to talk about it. And so again, one of my things that I'm constantly trying to sort of push with my clients is being able to find that little boy or little girl who, like you're saying, Lisa, found that this little secret, pornography world that I could escape into. Yeah, it's about the jolt of electricity that I get from viewing pornography, but it's also just a lot about getting away with something.
Yeah.
It's a lot about having my little world where this is just me. And I get to feel what I want to feel and do what I want to do.
Yeah.
But what is absolutely necessary for that is secrets and hiding.
Yeah.
Without the secrets and hiding, I don't get that. And in the rest of my life, I feel like I don't really get to just be who I am and feel what I feel and think what I think. I have to think, feel, and do what I'm being told to think, feel, and do.
Yeah.
And so that's a big part of what I think especially porn addicts are dealing with. They have to sort through and be able to start to own, I can think, feel, and do what I want in my day-to-day life and not have to cater it constantly to everybody. And
and that's the thing I discovered is that I was like a people pleaser and like I was letting other people kind of dictate my narrative and I like that control was like I was very much addicted to that. But I also know like a lot of people who are like survivors of sexual abuse or something, they usually talk about how they felt no control. And then a lot of them, unfortunately will go on and repeat the same abuse because they just had to feel like some kind of form of control, a perverted way. But I mean, it's a sad reality. I think what you're saying is totally accurate. I've never thought of that. Yeah, but very accurate.
Well, that's kind of, we're talking about big T trauma versus small T trauma, which again, neither one of those are better or worse.
Yeah.
They do the same amount of damage. But yeah, what I'm describing is more small T trauma. Over and over and over, I'm just kind of told, don't think that, don't feel that, that's not okay. And that accumulates, and then I, end up in the same place. But I can have a big T trauma where at this time, or maybe even repeated big T traumas. Yeah, same thing. I'm not in control of my body.
Yeah.
And you do tend to see people kind of acting out more extravagantly, more intensely.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm going to be the perpetrator this time.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the one that has the power and the control. And that's, again, I have a hard time even calling that addiction at that
Yeah.
point. That's just trauma,
For sure.
trauma repetition. Or,
Daddy issues is what you hear
Yeah.
all the time for
Mhm.
women that don't have dads, right?
Mhm.
So they're the ones that everyone's like, oh, she's a whore, or like she's this or whatever. But in reality, like she's searching for that love that she never got. It's not
Mhm.
because she's a sex addict. She's wanting that attention that she didn't have, rather than if somebody was abused by their father. Like that's a different type of trauma, right?
Yeah, and she may be struggling with addiction. You know, that
Yeah.
that may be an addiction kind of
To make her feel better.
impulse that's going
Mhm.
on, but
Yeah.
it's still coming from a wounded, traumatized place.
Right.
How I look at what true addiction is that's when it's brain based. If it's purely just kind of emotional based, sure, I can be having the same, kinds of struggles and everything. But again, we can address the emotional stuff and it's going to take care of itself.
Mhm.
But when my limbic system
Mm.
has rated this behavior as something that is very efficient
Mm-hmm.
at increasing my pleasure and decreasing my pain,
Mm.
and it's just been convinced of that, maybe by a big experience or multiple experiences,
Mm-hmm.
that's when my limbic system is going to keep pushing me. You really need this.
Yeah.
This solves our problems.
Mm.
And so then I have a real craving for it.
Yeah.
That's when it's really addiction. And where sex addiction gets tricky is that a lot of times what people who are coming to my office struggling with like sort of general pornography issues, what they're experiencing is just lust.
Yeah.
They're just feeling lust and then they want to go look at porn
Mm-hmm.
because that's been their secret world and they just kind of go do that. But it's not actually truly an addictive craving. Is
Yeah.
that making sense? When
For sure.
I don't want to lose
Yeah.
anybody on that. And so then it's a lot about just being able to differentiate that and be able to
Yeah.
say, you know what, lust is something that everybody should feel.
Yeah.
That's a really good feeling. It doesn't need to kick your butt and tell you what to do with your life.
Yeah.
And so let's learn how to deal with that lust feeling.
Yeah.
Which again, like if I'm a kid who grew up and it was not okay for me to feel lust and I never learned how to deal with that, that's a lot of learning that needs to happen. But that is different from like craving heroin.
For sure.
Mhm.
There's not like a lust feeling for heroin.
Like you're not going to go steal your mom's computer and all of her money to go watch porn,
Yeah. Because it's free.
but you will for but before there was a time like
I know,
remember
I
I
know.
grew up with brothers and they would be like, you'd always find magazine under the bed and my mom would be like, you guys like quit being gross, like blah, blah, blah. And I'm like whatever, like I don't care if they look at porn, like it doesn't bother me. But they're growing and they're curious, and there's also that
Mhm.
curiosity too that happens with kids where their mom might be like, oh my gosh,
Right.
he's a porn addict. No, he's a
Mhm.
curious 13-year-old that
Yeah.
wants to look like
I refuse to diagnose a teenager with any kind of
Yeah.
addiction. I will not
Mhm.
do it
Yeah.
because it just puts that stigma of more of just I'm a big problem and now I'm addicted and
Yeah.
like no, you're just a kid exploring sexual feelings.
Right.
That is
Yeah.
normal. We
For
should
sure.
be normalizing that for
Mhm.
you, not sending you to therapy.
Yeah.
I like to talk about so like when lust comes up,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to run away from that feeling because it's normal. I don't
Yeah.
need to run away from it, pretend like, oh, no, I'm not feeling any lust, or whatever. But I also don't need to run away with it
yeah.
and let
Yeah.
it just say, well, now I need to go look at porn. But if I've been doing that since I was 12 years old, then that's the only neural pathway my brain has
To
is
have it.
to go run away with it or to fight it.
Yeah.
And with mindfulness, it's just about learning how to just watch it. Oh,
Mm.
here it is. This is lust. This isn't craving. This is just a lust. Seems like I'm really interested in that girl. Okay, that's a normal feeling for a 14-year-old to
Yeah.
have, or even a 44-year-old person to have. Like
Mhm.
these are just feelings, and when we get them all wrapped up with, oh, I'm an addict, and
Yeah.
it
Or I'm
creates a
married.
stigma.
I shouldn't have a crush on
Yeah.
her. I'm married
Mhm.
to this person. It's normal to have a crush, right? But maybe just being open with that person or with your wife about it. Like it's like I don't know if it's because of just who she is or what it is, but I like being around her. Or like what do you do when you have a crush on someone? Just ignore them? Like
Well, like a straight up crush we might want to be a little bit more cautious around
Rather
that.
than lust.
But I should be open about it still. I should let
Mhm.
my spouse know, yeah, this is kind of showing up. But certainly, like my wife always likes to talk about how cute she thinks Harrison Ford is in the original Star Wars. Like that's just normal. That's
agree.
There we go. See? To be able to just notice that, I find that person attractive. We need to find a way for that to just mindfully notice that.
Yeah.
That's there. It doesn't have to tell me what to do, and I don't have to be scared.
Well, I love that I love that idea because like you can navigate through shame and then because normally if you attach shame to like an actual like feeling that pops up, then your first instinct is to go hide it, and then you can't you don't want to tell anyone about it. But then it's also you got to find safe people to talk about. But speaking of which, you have specific types of therapy that you like to use, right? With infidelity and just everything that we're talking about, right? Like I have written down EMDR, which I've experienced one session before with EMDR.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I thought, honestly,
it's weird.
What is it?
Well, it's like you move your eyes, right? And wait, no, I'm thinking of a different one.
No, not.
Where,
EMDR,
he kept saying words like to sort of like correct a thought or something like that.
Oh, that's probably like neuro-linguistic.
Something like that. Yeah, never mind. I guess I've never experienced EMDR, but can you explain it to us, please?
Sure. So I was trying to give the Reader's Digest version. Usually I have like a 25-minute spiel I give on it. But basically what EMDR is based around is that our brain is naturally wants to process in new information.
Yeah.
And that's what we want it to do. So today, right now, we're having a new experience. We're all going to go home. We're going to go sleep. And our brain is going to process in this new information and connect it to anything that, like James wearing a green shirt. So when's another time when I saw a green shirt and it'll bloop, make a little connection over there. We want that to happen because then that evens out our responses.
Oh, yeah.
Two things. Like if I got bitten by a dog when I was 6 years old, I want that to be processed in so that the next time I see a dog, not only do I remember being bitten by a dog, but I also remember 100 other times when I had fun with a dog.
Yeah.
Right? And it was great to be around a dog. But if it doesn't process in, then it gets stuck.
Then you're terrified of dogs.
And so now it doesn't matter if I'm 6 or 36, I see a dog and my brain only has that memory that gets triggered. Bloop.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I'm 6 years old and dogs are evil, scary monsters and the world's not a safe place and I can't protect myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm terrified. So EMDR is no more, no less than just kind of harnessing your REM cycle, the eye movement. That's why you do the eye movements, to kind of encourage your brain and say, hey, this didn't get processed back in the day when you were 6.
Yeah.
Let's process on it now so that we can even out that reaction. And what's really powerful about that concept is you can use it with addictions as well, because your brain will also kind of store euphoric, really powerful memories, like the first time you ever saw porn. It has that in there too. And so then when I see porn or I think about porn or I want to suddenly look at porn, that memory also goes poof, and suddenly I'm 12 years old and it's the first time I've ever seen boobs or whatever, it's like, even though that's not true of me today, right? And it's the way that I'm going to be able to feel like I'm in charge of my life and I can do what I want, and it has all this promise of what it means.
Like if you keep a dog away all the time, if you're never around dogs, you'll never get bit again, right?
Right. But so then when we process in that memory, it just softens it all. And so it doesn't make it so that I'm not interested in porn, but it makes it so it's not as compulsive because it doesn't mean what it meant to me in that moment anymore.
It's more I heard it explained like it's instead of one giant wave, it's like you spread it out. You have like small waves or something. Yeah. So that's super interesting. The way you just broke it down, now I'm interested in it again.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it is a weird process because you're sitting there and you're moving your eyes back and forth.
It's like hypnosis.
I'm just getting used to it.
So it's not like just bring a dog in and just look. You can't, if you're around dogs all the time, then you won't be scared anymore, right?
Yeah, put him in a room with the dog. Yeah.
Well, that's called exposure therapy.
Yeah, I know.
And you would kind of do it step by step. And EMDR is an exposure type therapy because you're exposing yourself in your mind.
It's more like revisiting.
You're
right?
opening it up. What you have all trapped in there that makes you immediately go, oh, I hate dogs, I'm terrified of them. Like that response. So it just smooths it out to where you're like, it's a dog.
All right, because I go back and I remember.
Yeah.
So I've been spending my whole life trying never to think about
Yeah.
that scary experience when I was
It's
6.
too scary.
Or that first time I ever saw porn, because that's the problem in
Mhm.
EMDR and all trauma therapies. Okay, EMDR is just one of them.
Mhm.
Is about saying, no, we're going to go back and we're going to look at this from an adult perspective.
And that's hard.
Give it a new
Which
it's
is
scary. You've been running from it your whole life.
But it's also great because how many times have you in your life gone, man, if I knew what I know now and I could go back to this with the knowledge, and it's like
I
that.
love dogs.
Well, in a way, you're doing that. You're saying,
Right.
well, here's
You
something
are.
that you did not have the ability to process in that moment, but you've always wanted to run away from it. So let's go back to it, unafraid, with help, and process through it,
Right.
Because you're just storing it there and it's not going
yeah,
anywhere.
it's going to go with you whether
Right.
you like it or not.
Mhm.
Might as well be able to live with it, right?
Yeah. Which takes a lot of that mindfulness again. I have to
Yeah.
stop running away from it, because the longer I do that, then it's going to turn around. I'm going to run away with it
Yeah.
at some point. So I need to be able to, let's just go back and sit with it. Just let
Yeah.
it
You can
be
run, but you
there.
can't
You
hide.
cannot hide.
No.
Well, that's what the addiction oftentimes is how I hide from those painful memories.
But
Yeah.
you can't hide from yourself.
Nope.
They're still in your mind. Even if you don't share them with anybody else, they still happened.
Mhm.
So letting them go, doing that therapy, it's just kind of smoothing everything out and saying it's okay
yeah.
to think it. It's okay to feel that again. It's okay to know that it happened. It's okay to share that it happened.
Yeah.
Well, and also you're not 6 years old anymore.
Yeah.
You
So you're
are
bigger and
36
braver.
or whatever, right?
Yeah.
You can take care of yourself.
Mhm.
Or like the 12-year-old with the porn. You're not a 12-year-old anymore. You're a grown-up. You can do whatever you want,
Yeah.
But he doesn't know that.
Yeah.
The 12-year-old, but so
'Cause it's
EMDR
still
kind
bad
of
to him.
opens it up. Yeah, and lets all these grown-up memories get in there.
Yeah.
What do you think you could wrap it up in all together as what advice to give listeners that know that this might be an issue to give the people that are suffering from it hope, and maybe people that are being hurt by it from somebody else?
What I hope that people can start to take away from this conversation, though, is that, first of all, we have to be honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
We have to start to get honest with, if I feel like I possibly have a problem here, I have a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
And I should feel confident
Mhm.
and good about being able to talk to somebody about that. Just
Yeah.
to clear it up. Don't wait until you get caught. Don't
For sure.
wait until something really bad happens. And I know, because I am there, that what you're saying to yourself right now is, well, yeah, but I'm just not going to get caught.
Yeah.
I'm just going to ratchet back my
And if
behaviors.
I tell
enough,
anybody,
Yeah.
then I'll be in trouble and everybody will know. And then I
Yeah.
won't be this person that everybody thinks that I am.
Mhm.
Yes.
But in reality, you're just being brave for everybody around you to let them say, hey, it's okay. It's
Mhm.
okay that you're not perfect. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
We're all weirdos.
Yeah.
Well,
We are all weirdos.
the sad thing is that that's not oftentimes the response you get when you do confess. A lot of times you get a broken
Right.
heart that wants to punish you, but I believe that should be the response. Like,
Or,
thank you for your bravery. Thank you for your
Yes.
transparency. Let me help you get to the bottom of this.
Or
you
other
know?
people have that same shame.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
if they say, well, you're bad, then it makes them look like they don't do it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So they could share the same shame with you.
Yeah.
And in order to prevent them getting caught, because if they were like, hey, I don't care, it's not that bad, then their
Right.
wife would be like, what do you mean you don't care? So you do it too?
Right.
Yeah. They throw you under the bus to protect themselves. Yeah.
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 One thing that I want to make sure that I said on this podcast was I think another stigma around getting help with these kinds of issues is that it can feel very sex negative.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
like we're saying sex is bad and you're a bad person, and that's what a lot of us grew up with, was that message. And so
Yeah.
recovery should never feel that way. And coming in and getting help for it, sex is awesome.
Mhm.
Sex is an amazing, wonderful, positive, ennobling part of a person's life.
Yeah.
And so, regardless of if you're actually hurting anybody with your behaviors and ultimately you are hurting yourself if your sexual behaviors are not being awesome for you. I guess
Yeah.
is what I'm trying to
If
say.
it's not healthy.
Yeah, and if
You're not doing it, if you're doing it for different reasons than
yeah, if
for
you're
love.
if you're being sexual
Mhm.
in any way, and you feel depressed or sad or shame or any of these things afterward, just come get help about that.
Yeah, it's a red
because
flag.
my job is not to fix your sex problems. My job is to help you get to a place where sex is something that is building you up.
Yeah.
That is a powerful, ennobling, that's my favorite word for it, part of your life, as opposed to the opposite. So if it feels like it's any way the opposite, just get help.
Check it out. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no
It's
shame
like having
in
a
wanting to
hangover.
improve.
It's like, man, I drank way too much. I shouldn't have done that. If you feel guilty and bad after you have sex with someone, why?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Figure
there?
out why.
Let's say somebody's listening to this and they want your help specifically. How can we find you?
Recoveringhope.net. That's recovering with an ING.
Okay.
On there's just a button you can push under my picture and make an appointment online.
Okay.
And you fill out all your paperwork and come on in.
Sweet. Well, I might have to come hang out with you.
Do some EMDR, do some cleanup work in there.
Yeah, we'll do some time travel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd probably put me in a straight jacket if you did that to me. And be like, this girl,
No judgment.
the hell is wrong with her?
judgment.
Dan understands. So, well, it was a pleasure having you here.
Absolutely.
We would love to have you back all the time because there's a mountain of stuff we could talk about. But so we'll wrap it there and let you go about your happy St. Patrick's Day.
Awesome.
And
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun. I would love to come back.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Well, we're definitely we're gonna chat
For sure. There's lots more to talk about.
Yeah.
Yes.
But thanks for watching. Smash that subscribe button as always, and thanks for joining us and hearing us out.
And I guess I can say this that I shouldn't, but and don't forget, fuck hard.
That's her catchphrase.
But now it feels bad.